Every crime hides a story. Every story waits to be uncovered. Welcome to Truth Unraveled. In the quiet, early hours of a freezing December morning in Kinver, England, silence lingered inside a grand 5-bedroom house. Hours earlier, that same space had echoed with laughter, alcohol-fueled chatter, and wild celebration. Now, all that remained was tragedy. At the foot of the staircase lay a young mother, her body lifeless and covered in marks that spoke of violence, bruises, cuts, and injuries that were impossible to mistake for a simple accident. Only moments before, this house had been alive with indulgence, but behind closed doors, choices were made. Choices that could never be undone. What became as a night of festivity ended as a devastating loss. This is the haunting story of Natalie Connolly. Natalie Connolly grew up in a working-class family where money was limited, but love and resilience were strong. From a young age, she developed a spirit of determination and optimism, traits that carried her through life's challenges. She was the type of woman whose laughter could brighten a room, whose warmth drew people in, and whose compassion made her a friend everyone could lean on. Those closest to her described her as thoughtful, caring, and fiercely loyal. She remembered birthdays, lent an ear without judgment, and loved without hesitation. But the center of Natalie's world was her young daughter. She wasn't just a parent, she was completely devoted. Every dream she chased and every plan she made was with her child in mind. She wanted stability, love, and security for her little girl, and she worked tirelessly to provide it. On the other side of this story stood John Broadhurst, a wealthy property developer with a fortune estimated at £15 million. His life seemed worlds apart from Natalie's. Dressed in designer suits, driving luxury cars, and living in sprawling homes, he projected the image of success and privilege. To the casual observer, his life looked enviable. But beneath that polished exterior was a man with a complicated past. He had recently broken off a long-term relationship with his fiancée, leaving her when she was 8 months pregnant with their second child. This decision raised serious questions about his loyalty and responsibility, and it left behind whispers about his character. For all his charm and wealth, there were shadows in his past that hinted at recklessness and selfishness. The paths of Natalie and John crossed in the summer of 2016 at the Wagon and Horses pub. For Natalie, the encounter was intoxicating. John radiated confidence and power, and being near him felt like stepping into a different world. Their chemistry was instant, and their relationship accelerated quickly. What began as discreet meetings soon grew into a whirlwind romance. Within months, Natalie had moved into John's rented 5-bedroom home in Kinver. For her, it felt like living inside a dream. She had never known such luxury before, and the house alone seemed like something from a movie or glossy magazine. John emphasized the contrast, showering her with expensive gifts, a BMW, a generous allowance, and talk of lavish holidays. They even planned to spend Christmas in Dubai, a glamorous escape that symbolized their new life together. To the outside world, they looked like the perfect couple. Friends and family saw photos of dinners at fine restaurants, trips abroad, and Natalie in designer clothes. From the outside, theirs was a love story of glamour and excitement. But behind that glittering surface lay something much darker. The intensity of their relationship carried risks. Nights were fueled by alcohol and drugs, where the line between thrill and recklessness blurred. Natalie's family began noticing worrying changes. She often had unexplained marks and bruises, which she brushed off as nothing serious. She assured them it was just part of their relationship and that she was happy. But behind her reassurances, there was growing concern. Those closest to her worried that what Natalie described as consensual play might have crossed dangerous boundaries. Yet she defended John, saying he was her future, the man who gave her the stability and love she had long sought. On December 17, 2016, the day started ordinarily. Natalie and John attended a football match, blending into the crowd of thousands. From their VIP seats, they appeared carefree, laughing with friends, enjoying drinks, and looking every bit the affectionate couple. To anyone watching, they seemed wrapped up in each other, enjoying a love story filled with passion and luxury. When the match ended, the evening continued at a local curry house. Surrounded by friends, they ate, drank, and laughed together. It was the image of a perfect Saturday night out. Their chauffeur later drove them back to their Kinver home, the same house that symbolized their life of indulgence. But once the doors closed and the guests were gone, everything shifted. The night stretched on with more alcohol, more cocaine, and more recklessness. What began as flirtation spiraled into something far more dangerous. The hours that followed blurred the line between consensual intimacy and harm, with devastating results. By the end of the night, Natalie had sustained more than 40 separate injuries. Some were obvious: cuts, bruises, and marks across her body. Others were hidden, including severe internal injuries that led to catastrophic bleeding. With medical attention, she might have survived, but help never came. John later claimed he couldn't carry her upstairs, that he was unable to lift her. Instead of dialing for help, he left her at the bottom of the stairs, bleeding and vulnerable. He had the means and opportunity to save her, but he chose not to act. Instead, he went upstairs to bed, while Natalie's life slowly ebbed away. By morning, December 18, 2016, it was too late. At 9:25 a.m., John finally called emergency services. Paramedics arrived to find Natalie cold and unresponsive, her body covered in trauma. The injuries were unmistakable. Dozens of wounds, both external and internal, that told the story of the night before. The autopsy would later confirm what the paramedics already suspected. Natalie's injuries weren't the result of a simple accident. Her body revealed catastrophic internal bleeding, alongside dozens of external wounds. Toxicology tests added another layer of tragedy. Her blood alcohol level was nearly 4 times the legal limit to drive, showing just how impaired she had been that night. Combined with cocaine and severe trauma, her body stood little chance of recovery. But what stood out most was the fact that these injuries may not have been fatal if medical help had been sought in time. This knowledge made her death all the more devastating for her family. To those who loved Natalie, the news was unbearable. They had lost a daughter, a sister, and most importantly, a mother whose young child would now grow up without her. For the wider public, the case soon became one of shock and outrage. How could a wealthy man with resources and influence stand by while his partner suffered? Why didn't he call for help the moment it was clear she was in danger? From the very beginning, investigators knew this was no ordinary case. The number and severity of Natalie's wounds made it impossible to believe her death had been accidental. Detectives pieced together the timeline of the night: the heavy drinking, the drug use, the escalation of risky behavior, and finally, John Broadhurst's decision to walk away instead of helping. Every choice he made, or failed to make, was scrutinized. To investigators, Natalie's body wasn't only evidence of a crime. It was a record of neglect, a silent testimony to the moments where her life could have been saved. The conclusion became clear. Natalie hadn't died because of a single misstep or fall. Her injuries showed she had been subjected to sustained reckless behavior, the kind that blurred the line between pleasure and harm. And though Broadhurst may not have intended to kill her, his refusal to seek help sealed her fate. In the weeks that followed, prosecutors built their case. They argued that as Natalie's partner, John Broadhurst had a duty of care. He was the one person who could have protected her in her most vulnerable moments. Instead, he abandoned her when she needed him most. Eventually, Broadhurst was charged with manslaughter by gross negligence. In court, he admitted that he had seen the extent of Natalie's injuries, that he knew she was vulnerable, and that he still chose to leave her. His guilty plea confirmed what investigators had believed all along. Natalie's death wasn't caused by intent to murder, but by extreme neglect. The courtroom was filled with tension as the verdict was read. In December 2018, John Broadhurst was sentenced to 3 years and 8 months in prison. The reaction outside the courtroom was swift and fierce. To many, the sentence felt like a mockery of justice. How could a man's refusal to help, a choice that directly led to a woman's death, be met with less than 4 years behind bars? To Natalie's grieving family, it felt like a second betrayal. First by John, then by the justice system itself. During the hearings, her loved ones delivered heartbreaking victim impact statements. They painted a picture of who Natalie really was. A lively, caring woman who adored her daughter, who had a twin sister with whom she shared an inseparable bond, and who had so much life left to live. Her mother described the unbearable pain of losing her child, while her twin sister said the loss felt like losing half of herself. The sentencing may have closed the legal chapter, but for Natalie's family, the wound will never heal. They were forced to sit and watch as the man they once trusted to love and protect her walked away with a punishment that many viewed as far too lenient. Her mother later spoke publicly, saying they had believed John would look after her daughter, but instead, he abandoned her in her most desperate hour. The weight of that betrayal only deepened their grief. To them, the sentence did not match the gravity of what had been lost. As the case became widely known, members of the public echoed the family's anger. People across the country were outraged, questioning how someone with Broadhurst's wealth and privilege could serve such a short sentence. It felt to many like proof that the justice system was skewed in favor of those with status and money. The details of Natalie's final hours left the public haunted. The bruises, the cuts, the internal injuries, and the image of her lying at the bottom of the stairs while John went to bed painted a chilling portrait of neglect. Her death was not the result of one bad decision, but of a chain of choices, each one compounding the last until her life was beyond saving. It also highlighted deeper issues. Was justice truly blind? Would a person without John's wealth and connections have faced the same outcome? The disparity was hard to ignore. Many felt that his sentence reflected not the severity of the crime, but the privilege of the man who committed it. Beyond questions of justice, Natalie's story also served as a grim reminder of how dangerous certain behaviors can become when normalized. What began as thrill-seeking, alcohol, drugs, risky intimacy, spiraled into a lifestyle where safety no longer mattered. For Natalie, this normalization of danger proved fatal. Her death was more than just the end of one woman's life. It became a symbol of the consequences of neglect, the ripple effects of reckless choices, and the failings of a system that many believed had once again put privilege before justice. For her family, there will always be the memory of Natalie's laughter, her warmth, and her devotion to her daughter. But there will also always be the painful knowledge of how she died. Abandoned, her life slipping away in silence, while the one person who could have saved her chose to walk away. The tragedy also left a lasting mark on the community. In Kinver and beyond, people struggled to understand how such a vibrant young woman could be taken in such a senseless way. It became a story not only about one family's grief, but also about society's responsibility to demand accountability and fairness. Natalie's death underscores an uncomfortable truth. Justice does not always feel just. The law may have spoken, but for many, the outcome was deeply unsatisfying. A woman had died from a chain of reckless decisions, and the man responsible served less time than some receive for non-violent crimes. To the public, it felt like her life had been measured against convenience, not value. Her story continues to serve as a reminder of the importance of speaking out when something feels wrong. Natalie's family had noticed signs, bruises, changes in behavior, reassurances that didn't quite ring true. They had worried, but Natalie dismissed their concerns. It is a painful lesson about how difficult it can be to intervene and how urgently we must try anyway. Today, when people speak about Natalie Connolly, they do so with a mix of admiration and sorrow. Admiration for the woman she was, a devoted mother, a loyal friend, a person full of laughter and love. And sorrow for the way her life was cut short, and for the justice that many feel she never truly received. Her death is not just a story from the past. It is a call to reflect on our choices, our responsibilities, and the systems that govern accountability. It asks us to question whether wealth and privilege still tip the scales of justice, and whether society is doing enough to protect those most vulnerable. In the end, Natalie's story is not defined by the man who abandoned her, nor by the courtroom that many believe failed her. It is defined by the people who continue to speak her name, who remember her laughter, and who fight to make sure her death was not in vain. So, what do you think? Was justice truly served? Or should the consequences have been far greater for the decisions that led to Natalie's death? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching Truth Unraveled. From hidden motives to shocking truths, we uncover the darkest stories. If you're drawn to real investigations, disturbing cases, and the pursuit of justice, don't forget to subscribe and join us as we continue exploring the crimes that shook the world.